Hi, I'm Michael Morris. I paint under the name Majamor. I graduated from Delaware State, 75. So it's been about 50 years because I came in 71, so it's been 50 years since I've been back to Delaware State. Lovely campus. When I was here, I really enjoyed it. I met a great group of guys, Carl Williams and Tony Burton. We were all in the art department. And we got to be great friends. We're still friends. Wouldn't give up my college days for anything. I would go back and relive them the exact same way. I'm an oil painter. I'm a graphic artist. I also do printmaking, photography. So I do a little bit of everything. I taught school. I taught at Salisbury for 40 years. I started a program called the Visual and Performing Arts Program in Salisbury in Wycomico County, who has turned out a great deal of great young artists going to top schools in America. What I want to talk about today is one of the reasons I enjoyed Delaware State was my mentor, Arturo Basils. Tony mentioned him previously. Arturo Basils was a Cuban that taught at Delaware State. We met him in 1972. And the guy meant everything to all three of us, Tony, Carl, and myself. One thing that I remember about Mr. Basils was we could go over his house. We had dinner, we would sit and we would talk. We would go to Mr. Basils' house and we'd pour metal. He had a foundry in his backyard where his studio was, and we would go over in middle of the summer and we're pouring metal. It's like 2,000 degrees in these suits and we're sweating, but it was the best time of our lives. And Mr. Basils became my daughter's godfather. So it just gets to show you we were a family instead of teacher-student relationship. It was a family, and I learned a lot from that man. What I would like to do is talk about a few of my pieces. Like I said before, I'm an oil painter, but I think I'm an illustrator, but I'm not the kind of illustrator that you would think of. An illustrator is a person that a company would come to you and say, I want a picture of this, or I want this, and they would illustrate it. I'm an illustrator as far as the style, but I'm not the kind of person, I don't like anybody to tell me what to do and what to paint. I paint what I see, read, or hear. And a lot of my pieces are social commentary pieces. One main piece is the one that's over my shoulder is Hands Up, Don't Shoot. And during the last few years, we've been watching all of the police shootings, Philando Castile and Sandra Bland and Trayvon Martin. And I came up with the idea that in America, you have to say hands up, don't shoot to the police if you're my complexion. And a lot of people will look at the piece of artwork and they'll see a lady with a big afro. But then when they come back and look at it the second time, what they see is all the hands that make up the edge of her afro, where we get the Hands Up, Don't Shoot title. The other one beside it is America Teach Your Sons. And it's a young man holding a bird's nest. And as parents of black males, we need to have that conversation with our kids, especially our males. Our males need to be taught how to treat women, how to be respectful, how to be honest, how to be loyal. And the second thing is know what to do when you have police interaction. That means if you get stopped by the car, put your hands on the steering wheel or put your hands out the window, and always keep your hands available to police officers to keep you safe. Unfortunately, that's the times we live in, and that's the things that, you know, black parents have to tell their students, or their kids, I should say. Another painting I'd like to talk about is BGM is Fabulous. It's of a black woman with a big brimmed hat. And the BGM is Black Girl Magic, is Fabulous. And it shows a black woman showing you who she is by the beauty that you see from the piece of artwork. And a lot of my paintings, I try to create artwork that says something to someone one time, but then you always have to come back and look at it again, and then you see other things in the piece of artwork. Usually it's self-explanatory, but a lot of it is interpreted by the viewer. And these are the types of things that I like to create. I used to paint pretty pictures. I used to paint landscapes and birds and those kinds of things, but then I've gotten more into the social commentary work. Another one is the Underground R&R, which is Underground Railroad. As you look at the picture, the slave is actually pointing to the North Star. But the cool thing about the piece of artwork is when you look at the background looks like a sky and clouds. But when you look at it closely, it's basically a map of the Chesapeake Bay and the Cambridge area where Harriet Tubman was born. And if you look at it even closer, you'll see a little red line that goes from Cambridge up to the north, which is one of her paths to freedom. I also have lately been doing a series of pieces of artwork called African Life series. And what it is African life depicted before colonialism. And it's ladies walking from the market with their goods walking back home, or kids rolling big tires down the street, or fishermen. And the process of that is I'll do a pen and ink drawing. I'll scan it into the computer, and then I'll take images of African villages or places, and it may be 3 pieces, and I cut it up, put it back together as a collage, and then superimpose that as a background behind the pen and ink artwork. And it's called African Life Series. One last piece I'd like to talk about is a piece that is called When Day Fell in Love with Night. And what it is one day I was just sitting around, and I always think about things that I see, and one of them was, well, night and day are always separated by dusk and dawn, but they never touch each other. And I was like, well, what would happen if day fell in love with night, but they could never have each other because they are never in the same sky at the same time? And the way they pass their love back and forth is the moon. Because the moon, if you wake up in the morning, is sometimes in the morning sky or in the evening sky. So they would pass their love back and forth through the moon. And that's Day Fell in Love with Night.